to cross an empty land. I knew the pathway like the back of my hand. I felt the earth beneath.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Neighborhood Training. I'm going to continue to work through different neighborhoods of Falmouth, and the reason that we do focus on these neighborhoods is to just try and change our way of thinking of doing road drills and area drills and so forth, and just to really focus in on different areas of town rather than just random road names and so forth. This week we're going to be looking at the neighborhoods of Brick Kiln Road East, the eastern section of Brick Kiln from Sandwich Road all the way over to Oxbow. And the neighborhoods in that area are the Jamie Lane neighborhood, the Kerrywood neighborhood, Falmouth Landing, and Homestead and Heritage. And we'll be able to move through those pretty quickly because they're pretty straightforward. A lot of other neighborhoods that we've gone to do have a lot of different maybe businesses and so forth associated with them. These neighborhoods here all share some very common threads in that these are year-round neighborhoods, year-round residents for people of our community. You know, the working folks of our community, a lot of retired folks, but a lot of working folks here. So where we talk about other areas of town, we might say, well, that might be 50% or 25% seasonal or largely seasonal. These areas here are occupied pretty much year-round. So when we go there, we do have to think of life hazards and the issues associated with them. These are neighborhoods also that we have had fires in. We have had fires in Heritage, we've had fires on Homestead, we've had fires in Jamie Lane and Kerrywood. So I know we're all familiar pretty much with Heritage and Homestead. You know, just real briefly, when we talk about Homestead Lane? Well, we talk about Homestead going from T-Ticket Highway to Brick Kiln Road. Oh yeah, great, okay. But we do talk about a cut through down here. We've had some pretty good accidents on Homestead. It's a residential neighborhood, but people cut through. So we've had kids run over on the little tricycles and stuff like that in the road and so forth. But the other thing that should come to our mind, Homestead, almost all of the houses on Homestead are ranches. Almost all of them were built in the 60s. There are obviously a few exceptions to that. So we're talking single-story ranches. We're talking just under 1,000 square feet houses. We're talking pretty much no garages on Homestead. And like I say, ranches. Now, Heritage was built whereas Homestead was in the 60s. Homestead was more, Heritage was more in the 70s and 80s. And Heritage begins to move into the capes and still ranches. And the other thing that keys in on Heritage is that a lot of the houses there, the basement access is only through the interior of the house. Now that's unusual because a lot of houses obviously have a bulkhead on the outside of it, and if we do have a fire in the basement, we just access the bulkhead, we keep the door closed on the inside of the house, and we go right in. With a lot of these houses here, and I think if you'll ask a few people that have lived in there, that the only access to the basement is through the inside of the house. So that makes it a lot tougher for us to deal with a incident in the basement. There are a few other places in town that are like that. The other place is the a bunch of condos at the corner of Brick Kiln and Sandwich Road. These condos right here have the same situation. They're at basement accesses through the interior, but not all the houses in Heritage, but quite a few of them have that trait. So as we move down, we see that we're talking about Brick Kiln, Jamie Lane, obviously Circle, Jamie Lane, a lot of split level houses in there, just like Tanglewood. Jamie Lane has, I would say, over 50% of them are split level ranches or raised ranches, with a mix of capes and regular ranches. And then Jamie Lane, those were started in the late 70s and 80s. And then we go into the Sophie Lane Kerrywood development here. And we're talking about approximately about 100 houses in this neighborhood here. And one of the highlights as I drove through there, that we need to really focus in on knowing these roads here, is there are very few street signs in this development here. When you come up to these intersections, there's no street signs. There's not, really it's very difficult to move your way around because very few street signs. So, and we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll be able to take some action on that and getting some street signs if we make a few phone calls. But still, beyond that, we need to know our way around. And then we have Nicky Lane and Mellowstone. And then we have Falmouth Landing Road, and basically that's just a circle. Falmouth Landing Road, I believe, was in the late 80s or 90s that those houses were built. And, that's about it. That just kind of wraps that section up. We'll just take a quick look at the other maps and the road. I'm not going to spend too much time on Heritage and Homestead, their road networks, because that's pretty straightforward. Although we will just take a quick look, and I also wanted to mention Windlayer Circle is in that other neighborhood area there. I know this has taken a while here to warm up. I just wanted to go over real quick if we look at it a lot more in depth and we do training on our own, try to focus into on perhaps which way the numbers run within the particular neighborhood. And this map here doesn't want to fill in. Let's see if we can get another one to come up here. Sometimes you get the computer just working a little too hard here and it can't figure out what it's doing. Okay. Boy, sometimes it's just so simple, and other times it just doesn't want to do what you want it to do. All right, I just want to go real quick, if this map would cooperate here, on just looking at the way the numbers run in Heritage. And if we can see here that the numbers run sequentially. Should see pretty good on that. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So, as we can see here, the numbers are low when you turn to the right of Heritage, and to the left are in the 100s is to the 100s are to the left, and the 10s are to the right. And as we've mentioned before, the numbers are running on Homestead. They start low on 28 and go high up towards Brick Kiln. Let's see if this other map has come up here. Good, okay, now we'll see if it'll load the other way now. Windlayer Circle is a small development. We mentioned that. just a cul-de-sac with a few, about 10 or 12 houses around there, some of them the long driveways. And what I want to focus on next is just looking at Jamie Lane, because I know a few times we've gone there and we've gone in, we've been directed to go one entrance and not the other. So just like with, we talked about Heritage Circle, here's pretty much the same scenario. The low numbers here, the teens and so forth, are on the eastern side, and the high 100 numbers are on the western side, so to speak. So that's just one way to remember, if you're approaching from Station 5, from that area, that your low numbers are going to be on your first entrance and your hundreds are going to be on your second loop area there. And then we'll move on to this development, the Kerrywood development, and the two entrances to that, here we go, are Sophie and Kerrywood. Kerrywood's main entrance into there, and Sophie Lane cuts through as well. So those are our two ways in. Okay, those two main entry roads. And I just want to key in on that, because that's the way I've tried to myself try to understand and negotiate through this development here, is that you have Sophie and Kerrywood, and then you have Candace, Rockville, Braxton, CRB. Too bad they're not alphabetical, but if we can try to remember some way to do it, CRB, Candace, Rockville, Braxton are our lateral roads. And then we have Mora and Tamway are more of our crossroads here. Okay, Tam being this also with a cul-de-sac at the end. But try to remember that. Sophie, Kerrywood, Candace, Rockville, Braxton, and then Mora and Tam, because I mentioned before that the street signs are very limited in this neighborhood, and you can easily get knocked around. Now, while we're talking right here, we will mention, if we look at the hydrant flows here, we do have hydrants in the range of the 1300s here, and the same thing on Homestead. So we are looking at hydrants that are flowing over 1,000 gallons a minute, which should be plenty for a cape, a ranch, between 1,000 and 1,500 square foot. We should be fine there. And then, as I mentioned before, the Falmouth Landing Road just basically just goes around in a circle, an old strawberry field that they built houses on. Okay, and then we have Mellowstone Way here, which does not have hydrants, but the road is only like 100 or 200 feet down, and it just opens up to some houses of the Mellow family. And then we have Dinky Lane here. This is just recently put in the past 10 years. Okay, all right, that about wraps that up in a very simple format. I want to take just a quick review of the neighborhoods at Brick Kiln East. And here we go. All right, the neighborhoods at Brick Kiln East. So we're talking approximately in that these roads here that we just covered, about 350 wood frame single family dwellings. And the houses on Homestead Lane, they run in an average of 900 square feet, single family ranches we talked about, up to around 1,500 square feet for some of the maybe colonials or so forth that are in the Kerrywood Estates area. But like I said, 900 to 1,500 square feet. And if we do our fire flows from that, right, length times width divided by 3. In this area here, we have approximately 700 year-round neighbors that live there, and I do want to stress that year-round. This is not; these are working folks, and they're here year-round. Ranchers and capes, mid-60s are current, and there's not too much. I mean, and we need to just be thinking of that. And the only reason I mention that is that some of the more modernly built houses obviously are going to have perhaps some better construction features. We have a predominance in, if we have a neighborhood that's just built in the 70s, then we're going to see a lot of trusses and so forth like that. Houses perhaps in the 60s, probably a lot of those did not even use plywood, and they're probably stick framed. So the ones on Homestead, since they're built in the 60s, are probably going to be a bit more substantial than perhaps something that's built now that has pressboard and for plywood and so forth. The Homestead Lane houses are probably all non-truss, and they're probably all even no plywood or anything. So, you know, those are just the reason why we mentioned that. And the road networks that we have there, talking Homestead, Heritage, Windlayer, Jamie Lane, Nicky, Mellowstone, Falmouth Landing. Those are pretty straightforward. Then we get in the Kerrywood development, and we have Sophie and Kerrywood are the main entry roads. Candace, Rockville, Braxton are the main lateral roads. CRB, the main lateral roads, and then we have Tamway and Mora Lane are the cross roads from that. And just, these are pretty straightforward pictures of some of the houses there. No real surprises. This little house on Jamie Lane that was for sale, I just wanted to show something that was just a little bit different than our regular capes and ranches and colonials. This obviously is a ranch, but it's just a little different modification with the double door going in the center, and you know, no garage, chimneys. So just wanted to show that, and I believe this is just a nice little gambrel here, and no garage once more. Just pretty straightforward. Just trying to find some little features here to point out. This chimney here, obviously it probably serves for the oil burner in the basement, but then we have up here, we have a little, perhaps a little wood stove in this building here as well. These gambrels obviously a very large area up top for larger bedrooms and so forth. Storage up there is a little limited. We don't have really a lot of cheek storage here, but just little features for that. Okay, that about wraps that up, and thank you for tuning in, and heads up, and I hope that this helped you out understand these neighborhoods a little bit better. And in the meantime, stay safe and eat healthy.